What killed the dinosaurs? Number one!
Were you thinking it?
No, you said it.
Hey everyone, Assassin here. Today I wanted to talk about something that I haven't seen a lot of people go into detail about, and that's setting up multiple loadouts to use throughout the match for whatever situation you might find yourself in. Because as you know, the loadout that you get coming back from the gulag in the final circle is not the same loadout you get at the beginning of the match. Now, to be clear, this isn't a video about the best guns to use. This video assumes you already have a primary picked out, a close quarters gun like an SMG or a shotgun. Shotguns are for garbage human beings.
He ain't lying.
And a long range weapon like a sniper or a marksman rifle. If you haven't picked out what gun you actually want to run, I do have a video of the top 10 most used assault rifles in Warzone and the meta build, so make sure to check that out. And I also have a lot more videos coming out for the other gun categories as well. And I'm in the middle of revamping all of my content and the quality to make sure that I'm bringing you the best I can, so make sure to subscribe because I have a lot more coming your way. Before we get into the individual loadouts, I wanted to go over when the free loadouts drop. And for those of you who don't know, there are 2 free loadouts that drop in every match. The first one drops 15 seconds before the first circle closes. The second one drops 15 seconds after the 4th circle closes. Keep this in mind because depending on where you are in the match, whether a loadout has dropped or not, this will influence your decision in what loadout to get. One more thing I wanted to talk about before we get into the actual loadouts is the 2 loadout strategy. It's a very common strategy and it simply means that you're going to have 2 loadouts throughout the match. The first loadout is going to have Overkill, which allows you to have 2 primary weapons like an assault rifle and an SMG, and the second loadout is going to have Ghost. And that's kind of the basics of this 2 loadout strategy. But depending on where you are in the match, you might not always want to get Overkill first. And it's those situations that we're going to talk about throughout the video as we go through the loadouts. Now, starting with the first loadout, this is an Overkill class with your primary weapon and a close quarters weapon, whether that be an SMG or a shotgun. Shotguns are for trash human beings. And this is the loadout that you're going to be aiming to get at the beginning of a match, ideally getting it way before the first free loadout drops. You could accomplish this by looting around, completing contracts, or landing in a bunker and taking it over. Getting this loadout as early as possible allows you to dominate every single person that's around you, because most of them are going to be fighting with weapons they pick off the ground. Now, the second loadout that we're going to talk about is a variation on this. You're going to want to switch out the close quarters weapon for a long range weapon. In my case, I like to use the HDR. Now, some of you might not use a sniper, and that's okay, so you'll always be picking out the first loadout. But if you use both like I do, you're going to be wanting to look at the map and where you actually landed, and you could make a smart decision based on that, as well as looking at your team composition, right? Now, I want to move on to 3 more classes, and all these are variations on each other, but they all have specific differences that I want to get into.
Down, all 3 team wipe. Good.
These 3 classes are all going to have Ghost. For the primary weapon loadout, it's pretty straightforward. Pick your primary weapon, and you could really choose whatever secondary you want. Pistol, rocket launcher. I personally run the Kali sticks. Really pick what you want there. For the SMG loadout though, specifically if you're running an SMG, you're going to want to run a secondary pistol with fully loaded. That way if you ever pick up this loadout, you're going to have full SMG ammo. And if you're a shotgun user in this case, having a secondary pistol with fully loaded doesn't matter, just like your self-respect. And for your sniper class, I actually would recommend running a Pila secondary. 99% of the time you get this sniper class, you're only going to do it if everything's going right and you already have a primary weapon. So having a Pila secondary just gives you that extra option in case you ever run into a chopper that needs to get taken down, for example. Now, these 3 loadouts, unlike the first 2, have a lot of situations where you might want to pick this instead of Overkill. First, let's talk about the positive scenarios. If everything works out, you get Overkill, your team's alive, everything's all good, you could simply just grab any of these really and get Ghost. Some things to consider though, and the reason we have 3 separate loadouts for this is, let's say you grab an SMG at first, but you've done some recon since you've gotten your Overkill class and you want to switch to a sniper, now you could do that and keep Ghost. Another situation is, let's say things didn't work out right and some of your teammates actually died. Now they could land here, get their primary weapon, and you could give them that extra gun that they need while keeping your own. The 4th situation you could find yourself in is that it's too late for Overkill. Let's say you didn't get your first loadout or you died and now you're diving from the gulag straight to your first free loadout. At this point you're going to want to grab Ghost because everyone else is going to have heartbeat sensors and UAVs, so staying off the enemy's radar is very important. But because you have your loadout set up like this, you could grab Ghost straight off the bat and then loot around some more and then buy a second loadout with Ghost as well. That way you're not putting yourself at a disadvantage at any point in the game. So the big takeaway with having these three loadouts is simply to have your options open. A lot of people don't actually run these loadouts, and there are a lot of situations where I run with teammates that don't have this loadout set up like this, and in the middle of the match, let's say they only have their primary and they want to pull out an MP5, they can't do that because they only have their MP5 on their Overkill class. And you know, that's a situation you never want to be in. And let's say you have Overkill already and you're just trying to get Ghost, there are actually better loadouts than these, and these are going to be your fully loaded classes. The first loadout you're going to want to have is with your primary weapon, -1 attachment and fully loaded, and a secondary pistol with fully loaded. The second loadout is simply going to be your sniper with fully loaded, and you're going to grab either class depending on what kind of ammo you need. But let's say you don't need any ammo. Some of your teammates might, so why not just drop all your AR ammo, all your pistol ammo, and grab fully loaded, because there's always someone who's going to be short on ammo. And why add the risk of losing a gunfight in the future because someone runs out of ammo? Solve that problem right now by building this loadout. The first loadout that I mentioned with your primary weapon and the pistol, this is actually going to double as your endgame loadout.
We're in the endgame now.
The endgame loadout is the one that I was talking about in the beginning. It's the one you'll grab when you're coming back from the gulag, everyone's dead, but there is a shining light at the end of the tunnel. There's a loadout in the circle. Again, this loadout is with your primary weapon and a pistol, both with fully loaded, and Ghost. And the reason you're going to want to grab this instead of any other loadout is because at this point in the match, it's safe to assume that everything's been looted, so you're not going to find a lot of ground loot, including ammo, and it's also safe to assume that everyone that's surviving still has Ghost and heartbeat sensors. At this point, everyone else should have a lot of cash to buy UAVs if they don't have them already. So staying off the radar at this point in the game is more important than it ever has been before, especially since you'll be coming back in a desperation situation. Meaning sometimes it's only going to be you and you're actually going to need to hide in order to kind of make it to the end. We've actually won a lot of matches where we kind of just land, grab this, we're able to hide in quads, but it's only like one person alive, and then we just take out the final guy, right? So this is kind of the situations you're going to find yourself in. And in order to survive all this and possibly win, you're going to need your primary weapon as well as ammo and Ghost. So this is kind of that all-purpose class that gives you that. So that's all of the loadouts that we're going to build today, but there are a few more things you could do to give yourself a better advantage. The first thing is putting your primary weapon Ghost loadout into the first slot of your loadouts. And the reason you want to do this is because there are some times where you need to grab your loadout in a desperate situation and there's no time to kind of sift through the list and pick and choose, and you want to go with the loadout that gives you the most bang for your buck, and that's going to be your primary weapon with Ghost. And the other thing you could do is put your endgame loadout in your very last slot. It's good to have both of these loadouts that I just mentioned in easy positions to pick. And that brings us to the end of the video. Let me know if you guys learned anything today, and if there are any other loadouts that we could add to this list that could help us in specific situations. I've learned all these tips and tricks on how to build all these loadouts to be prepared for all these situations because I took so many losses and I want to make sure you guys don't suffer the same fate, and that's why I made this video. If you guys liked what you saw, please subscribe, please hit the like button. Again, I have a lot more content coming your way and I'm open for suggestions, so let me know down in the comments below if there's anything else you want to see. I'll catch you again next time.
It's coming towards you. Don't get ran over, dude. Here, buy that loadout. Pepe, give him money.